Operating levies passed last night. There will be cuts.
Portland schools now have rules to deal with AIDS patients. They will not be identified.
And in the forecast for this Wednesday, partly sunny skies after morning clouds and a high of about 70 degrees. And in sports, NFL players have a new proposal for the owners.
And back to our top news story this morning. More than 16,000 Oregon State employees are on strike this morning.
Casey Cowan is in Salem joining us with a live report. Good morning, Casey. What can you tell us?
Well, good morning. Well, at this point, it's hard to say exactly how many employees will not show up for work today, and it's hard to say how many will be on the picket lines throughout the day. But 75 workers were picketing at the state hospital and just about that same amount at the correctional institution after midnight.
The Oregon State Hospital was one of the first places state workers struck when the midnight deadline passed. Pickets went up, leaving management to handle the patients. The goal of the union is to shut down the hospital, to convince the state and Governor Goldschmidt that with 16,000 workers on strike around the state, the government isn't going to be able to get much done. The knowledge that there would be a strike came much earlier than anyone anticipated. Talks broke off late Tuesday afternoon, hours before the midnight deadline. The Oregon Public Employees Union says the state just isn't bargaining fairly, not only on the issues of raises, but non-economic issues as well.
We still have major workload problems in the state. We're trying to address those so that the public can be adequately served by employees who provide services in state agencies. The state will not propose anything other than very watered-down meet and confer language. So we have a number of major non-economic issues that we can't get any resolution on.
As for the state, it feels it negotiated in good faith, but just had nothing left to offer.
They want a lot more money than we have available. I don't know how to characterize it because I wasn't in those sessions that involved the two chief negotiators and the mediator. They say, apparently, that we're not offering as much as they think they deserve. We just don't have any more money to offer.
Governor Goldschmidt, who has purposely kept away from the negotiations, issued a statement that OPEU's demands are millions of dollars above the state's reasonable offer.
And also among the first state workers to walk off the job and onto the picket lines were those at Damage State Hospital. Don Reese was there 1 minute after midnight.
Cheers and chants now replace the quiet talk of negotiation. Here, Damage Hospital workers are joined by dozens of other union members from across the state. These people say they're overworked and underpaid. They want more money and more benefits.
We want our rights, and they're not willing to give it to us.
I often have to teach my clients they need to stick up for themselves sometimes when things aren't right for them, and I feel I am setting an example.
It's a strategic strike. Workers will picket different agencies every 3 days. The union hopes to send a message to state officials.
It's going to prove to them that they can't get along without us. We have very valuable employees of the state.
In Wilsonville, Don Reese, News 8.
And we'll be following the OPEU strike throughout the day and seeing just what kind of impact it does have on the state. We'll have a series of reports for you on News 8 at 5.
Casey, what has management done to prepare for the strike to keep the offices open?
And now a game of high stakes where every decision
affected by the walkout. Casey, has the negotiator been able to convince both sides to come back to the bargaining table?
Yes, Pete, we just heard this afternoon from state negotiator John Vail. He called to tell me that he was able to convince both the state and the union to agree to go back to the bargaining table. That will happen Friday morning at 10 o'clock. But that, of course, doesn't mean that the end of the strike is at hand, because both the union and the state have very strict agendas on what they want in a contract.
The State Revenue Office was targeted by OPEU members for an early morning picket. They want other state employees and anyone passing by to know that they think the state's offer of a 3% wage increase isn't enough. Although there are other issues on the table, such as workload, seniority during layoffs, and health insurance, for these employees, it comes down to their paychecks.
We're living from paycheck to paycheck, and if they take any more deductions out, I can't afford it.
and I'd like a pay raise too. Seems like everybody else gets one, but the workers that do all the work.
When negotiations broke down Tuesday afternoon, it was chiefly because the state refused to budge from its offer of 3% pay increases, and the union refused to come down from its request for 4.5% increases. State Executive Director Fred Miller pointed out that 6 other unions have already negotiated contracts with the state, and none was above 3%.
Our economy is recovering. We're certainly not recovered. We're working hard at that. In our case, we just cannot come up with the kind of money to support that salary increase that's appreciably above what other people consider to be a fair and a reasonable settlement.
And Governor Goldschmidt said he couldn't justify giving the state employees more money when so many other Oregonians have had to take rollbacks.
The taxpayers pay my salary. They pay everybody in the state government. There are 1,200,000 of them out there going to work every day, and we're collecting their taxes, and it's our responsibility to figure out how to spend the money.
The news conference was interrupted by striking workers who filled the governor's outer office chanting slogans. Goldschmidt did not acknowledge the protesters as he left the room.
But the governor does acknowledge that the strike will undoubtedly disrupt state business, and there will be some inconvenience to the public. Now, there was probably some of that occurring today as hundreds of workers did not go on the job. But it wasn't a massive walkout by all 16,000 state employees. We have some statistics that were released by the executive department, a survey they did. The 2 areas hardest hit were the state hospitals targeted by the union. Damaged hospitals had 92% of their strikeable employees walk out. The state mental hospital had 68% walk out. Another area of government targeted was the Department of Revenue. 37% didn't show up there. Next highest was the Corrections Division. 30% didn't show up. And the Department of General Services had 27% of its strikeable employees absent. Some departments with high attendance included the Employment Division with only 9% missing, and the Treasury Department with its absentee rate of 3%. Now, the union says that it thinks this list of attendance rates from the executive department is, well, suspect. And they also say that the numbers game is not the way to really judge the merit of the strike and the effectiveness of it. What is the way to judge the strike? Well, they do have quite a sophisticated strike strategy, and Walden Kirsch has been looking into that.
Let's be real! We can't afford your lousy deal!
Strikers began the day with a high decibel demonstration on the interstate bridge. Before the workday had even begun, tens of thousands of commuters found they were heading for Oregon strike territory, and a state labor force seemingly proud to be out.
Long faces, droopy faces. No, we're going to win this.
I have nothing to lose and all to gain.
But appearances there on the bridge were deceptive. Within the city of Portland, there were no union-sponsored walkouts. OPEU members were told by their leadership to report for work as usual. State-hired security guards patrolled some offices, but again, in the state's biggest city, no pickets, no signs, no work stoppage.
We feel that this is the best way to hurt our own members less financially, to better try to serve the clients of the state of Oregon, and frankly, to cause management more problems.
And there were scattered problems. 3 local Adult and Family Services Division offices were closed by state officials in anticipation of the strike. Union workers were shuffled around. The result was some confusion and annoyance.
It's just, I'm a single parent, and it's real tough.
Oh, it's chaotic. They have people doing jobs that they don't know how to do. They've got caseworkers doing reception work. They've got Southeast clericals on the other side. Nobody really knows what they're supposed to be doing.
But management people downplayed this.
Well, we feel like it isn't business as usual, because it isn't, but we definitely are still in business.
The fully staffed Department of Motor Vehicles saw one of its quietest mornings in a while. Apparently, fear of the union walkout that did not happen kept customers away in droves. Here, as elsewhere, the union strategy is to cost its members as little salary money as possible while maximizing hassle for state officials.
We're going to be hurting them.
How?
They are not knowing what we're doing. They cannot plan ahead.
Everybody will have a turn at striking for a while. If nothing's done, we may be compelled to call a general strike.
Along the Oregon coast, meanwhile, there were scattered walkouts. The coast was the single region of the state that the union did target for first-day picketing. And in Eugene, coffee breaks were transformed into strike breaks as union members reported for work as usual, but hoisted signs on their own time. By day's end, union bosses were talking of additional walkouts by the end of the week. At the end of day one, though, the biggest picket line in the Oregon strike didn't even happen in Oregon. I'm Walden Kirsch, News 8.
Meanwhile, management has had to roll up its sleeves and go to work where the employees have walked out. Now, at Damage Hospital, which was one of the first ones struck, Don Reese reports that the patients there are just getting the basics.
The night shift ended early and loudly at Damage State Hospital. In the midnight darkness, members of the state's largest public employees union joined in a show of solidarity. Workers want better pay and more benefits. In the early hours of the strike, picketers are enthusiastic.
Yes, we want our rights, and they're not willing to give it to us.
12 hours after the strike began, the crowd is smaller and mostly silent. Chanting begins only when television cameras begin taking pictures.
Take a hike, 2%, we'd rather strike. Hey, Neil, take a hike, 2%.
Enthusiasm is replaced by determination.
But we're staying until it's settled. We're not going to give up.
Are we going to give up, guys?
No!
By leaving behind hundreds of hospital patients, these workers are trying to force the state to give in. But the state is fighting back with a small army of new workers. Workers like Art Kyle. He handles public relations for the state health division. Now he's scrubbing pots and pans.
Well, it's kind of fun. I don't know I'd want to do it all the time, but it's kind of fun for today.
But while the state is keeping the hospital open, it cannot provide special services like group therapy and counseling. Some patients are worried.
There's an awareness, a level of uncertainty and questions about, their basic needs. Are they going to be discharged? Are they going to get fed? Who are these people that are here? And we've been able to answer them, I think, in a reassuring manner.
Picketing ends here late this week, and workers will return to their jobs. But officials predict until the strike is over, it won't be business as usual at Damage Hospital. In Wilsonville, Don Reese, News 8.
And once again, Pete, the state and the union are going back to the bargaining table Friday at 10 o'clock.
Casey, any word yet on whether the state will hire replacement workers?
Well, we asked Neil Goldschmidt that today, and he said not at this time. He has no plans to do that. If the strike were to go on for a very long time, he probably would have to consider that, especially for places like Damage and the state hospital.
Last month after him in the stabbing murder of a prostitute behind a restaurant along southeast McLaughlin. That murder struck investigators as similar to the 7 Malala murders and led deputies to investigate Rogers more closely.
Right now they're using the term focal suspect. There is other suspects. I don't know the amount of the other suspects, but he is one of several that they are looking at.
So far, 2 of the remains found southeast of Malala last month have been identified as prostitutes from the Portland area. Identifications of the other remains may come as soon as next week. Rogers had pleaded not guilty in the last month's murder of the prostitute in the Milwaukee area. His attorney is out of town and not available for comment on the latest allegations. Again, the sheriff's office surely repeats that they are looking at other suspects, and they're not naming who those people may be, but Rogers is the focal suspect.
Do we know how many other suspects, and what exactly does this focal suspect mean?
Well, all of this is kind of tinged with very precise language. Obviously, the investigators are concerned about blowing a criminal case should it get to a district attorney's office, change of venue outside the area, so they're saying very little at this time. Focal suspect, they say, is someone that is considered more prime than a regular suspect, but not as prime as a prime suspect. So you have varying degrees of interpretation here that all make this very complicated. They say that there are several others they are looking at. They won't say how many others, but more than 1 or 2, they say.
They must have some very strong evidence to hold him, or is it just because of the nature of the crime that he's charged with now?
Well, of course, that's what is holding him now. They say they, at this time, do not have enough for an arrest, a rearrest on other charges. So at this time, they don't really have, they're not saying what they have on him, but not enough to press new charges against him.
Now, I understand he was once a possible suspect in the Green River killing investigation. How does that relate to how they're thinking about a possible connection right now?
Well, increasingly, investigators are saying, at least off the record, that they're beginning to draw real distinctions between the Malala murder case and the Green River. They really think it's apparently 2 different people. The medical examiner said that the bone analysis done on some of the remains suggests that they're differences between the Malala and the Green murders, and they're beginning to draw distinctions that separate the two cases.
Are you getting a feeling about how much public pressure the authorities are feeling on finding a suspect?
Well, I think there's quite a lot. You have a case where a lot of public attention has been put on this case. People are concerned, quite honestly, and you have a sheriff running for re-election. You have a lot of things involved in this case that make authorities want to find a suspect, but they're playing it by the book, and they're saying as little as they can until they get more specific evidence.
Okay, thank you for your report, Richard. Day 2 of the Oregon Public Employees Union strike against the state of Oregon mirrored day 1. Select targets from Portland Bridge tenders to the Oregon State Hospital were hit with the walkout, but most other union members remained on the job. Another bargaining session is set for tomorrow, but as senior correspondent Chuck Diamond explains, there seems little reason for optimism.
At the Department of Revenue, union members crossing picket lines limited the effect of the strike. At the Oregon State Hospital, most eligible to strike have. Some have found innovative ways to picket. Others say they found innovative ways to strike.
In a typical general strike walkout of all employees at one time, all the employer has to do is just wait. Waits until the pocketbook forces people back on the job. Our strike puts the employees in control, not the employer.
The union argues by calling workers off the job some days and sending them back others, it protects the workers' pocketbook, thus setting up the potential of a very long strike.
But I think they should be noticing something also, which is we made the responses necessary, and I think we can continue to do it.
Perhaps the key question in this battle between union and state is whether the union strategy of selectively targeting agencies and institutions can legally go on indefinitely.
What you're really saying is the rolling strike is a euphemism for chaos. And we aren't going to permit chaos. We're not going to permit the customers of the government who pay for the services to be given chaos. We are not going to pay people to create it.
The governor strongly implied the state may tell workers they cannot return to work if they go out a second time.
Let me just say that the governor, like it or not, will be forced to live within the confines of the statutes, and people have a right to engage in strike activity.
What frustrates those public workers on strike is a belief the governor could find enough state dollars to settle the strike, from the legislature's emergency board, for example.
He's stubborn. He doesn't want to spend more money. He wants money in the e-board so he can give it to businesses who want to relocate in Oregon. Well, I'm sorry. I mean, I think if you run a service industry, you can't treat your workers as the bottom of the barrel. They're the ones who carry the weight.
The governor counters that the state's offer is fair, and he doesn't plan to increase that offer when both sides return to the bargaining table Friday.
We're not going to go beyond the 3 and 3. I mean, we've given managers a 2% increase. We've settled with other unions. They're moving to settlement. We're not going to come in and say we're going to give OPU twice as much.
Well, then I guess we won't have a settlement Friday.
The negotiating session tomorrow could be a very short one. Chuck Diamond reporting for Newsroom 6.
That strike already has closed 6 day-use parks on the northern Oregon coast. This week's levy defeat may not bring an end to athletics in the Hillsboro Union High School District. Coaches and business people are trying to save after-school programs, which lost their funding in this week's defeat. As Mark Katkov reports, their plan, though, has some critics.
A majority of Hillsboro's voters said no to the high school district levy last Tuesday, and no meant an end to students' extracurricular activities. But the district's 40 coaches are not accepting that decision and have resolved to continue athletics, even to the point of foregoing some salaries.
As the coaching staff really firmly believes that they owe it to the students.
The coach's plan is to increase the students' sports participation fee from the current $25 to as much as $292 for varsity basketball, $105 for varsity football. Students unable to pay would be helped by a community fund, which has yet to be established. The coach's motives may be commendable, but it's not an idea everyone agrees with. Some teachers argue that funding the athletic program sends voters the wrong message. The president of the Hillsboro Teachers Union warns that rescuing athletics will only divert attention from academic programs that also fell with the levy.
Stating that they've got to put the priorities other than in sports and in activities, and it should be the entire educational program.
Because of the levy defeat and teacher layoffs, next semester students will be allowed to register for only 5 courses. They can now take as many as 7. The school bus program at Hillsboro was cut as well, and the drivers will be laid off.
I don't hear anybody fundraising for them or the 40 to 50 teachers that are going to be eliminated, and I don't hear fundraising for them.
The coaches say they can keep the athletic program going only for the rest of the year. After that, it's up to the voters. Still, opponents warn that keeping the program going at all could serve to reassure those who voted against the levy that their no votes were reasonable and the students will not suffer. Mark Katkoff reporting for Newsroom 6.
While Hillsborough is picking up the pieces from its levy defeat, the city does have some reason to celebrate. 1 year after Fujitsu America came to Hillsborough, the company is making another major investment, as Ken Body reports.
It was the kind of announcement Governor Goldschmidt couldn't stay away from. On this 145 acres owned by Fujitsu, construction will start immediately on a $30 million manufacturing plant employing 500 people. It will be the second plant on this site.
We were very pleased with the success achieved here in Hillsborough during the factory's first full-year operation.
The first plant opened in June of last year. There are 200 employees here making disk drives and disk enclosures for computer systems. The first-year performance prompted the go-ahead to Phase 2. The original plant is expected to add 300 jobs of its own in the next year.
The well-publicized industry shakeout of the last few years is over. The major players have emerged, and Fujitsu America is one of them.
Fujitsu officials say they are making a long-term commitment to Oregon. If the business continues to grow for Fujitsu's products, the Hillsborough operation could grow to include a workforce of 3,000 plus.
Fujitsu America's continuing investment in Oregon not only translates into jobs at this site, but increased contracting business with Oregon's suppliers.
Last month, Fujitsu America's sister company, Fujitsu Microelectronics, announced the construction of a wafer manufacturing plant in Gresham. Both companies are subsidiaries of Fujitsu Limited of Japan, a $12 billion corporation. The new manufacturing facility should be completed by March of 1989, and Fujitsu officials say that depending upon business conditions, they may announce a third phase, which could mean even more jobs. In Hillsborough, I'm Ken Body reporting for Newsroom 6.
Well, on the 17th day of September, we are officially 7 days away from the start of fall, yet overnight temperatures are in the 40s, a little brisk.
While the daytime temperatures, they have been rising. Will that trend continue tomorrow, Miles?
It'll continue to be nice tomorrow, Mike. Not quite as warm as our 80 degrees today. We'll be in the 70s. It'll still be lovely. Let's take a look at the satellite picture. You can see not a whole lot of cloud cover across the northwest. There are a couple of systems off to the west of us in the Gulf of Alaska that will probably continue to stay in the Gulf of Alaska with low pressure there. High pressure continues to be the story across the west, and there's the storm track. It misses us to the northwest. If you're going to southeast Alaska, though, expect rain. But here in the northwest and tonight, it ought to be nice. Fair and mild temperatures ranging anywhere from the upper 70s to the mid-60s a little bit later on. You'll love the forecast when I come back a little bit later with it. Mike and Shirley?
Coming up, we have news of restitution for Japanese Americans.
We're also going to focus on migrant workers in Oregon and what the Catholic Church means to them. And later we'll report on the start of Oktoberfest and visit the big celebration going on there.
It's happening right now. The Toyota Tag Sale. That means your Toyota dealer is making the year's best deals.
You know what? You got a deal.
We're clearing out our entire 1987 inventory to make way for the 88s. So you'll find sale tags on every car, every truck, every Toyota in stock.
I'll take it.
The time to buy America's #1 selling import is now. So get down to the Toyota Tag Sale today, and the right deal will be yours right now.
Oregon's largest Waterman retailer declares war!
At Waterbeds West, we're fed up with those other Waterbeds stores with their big price. So today, we declare Waterbed more. We find our troops with some of our lowest prices ever. Complete Waterbeds starting at just $99. Bookcase Waterbeds just $179. 4-poster Waterbeds $249. Even waveless mattress is a tremendous savings.
And no payments of any kind for 3 months.
Waterbeds more. Right now at Waterbeds West, where quality, price, and selection really means something.
Now this is something new. McCall's Service Protection Plan for people like me who depend on oil heat. This plan covers things other oil companies won't touch. McCall tunes up your entire heating system. They're on call 24 hours a day with no cost for parts or labor and no overtime charges. Now that's a plan. Why do you need it? Just in case. Hello, McCall?
Compare the alternatives. There's no other plan like it. Call McCall. We've got you covered.
A legend is coming to town. A legend 67 years in the making. White Castles, those legendary hamburgers and cheeseburgers with the irresistible taste, are now available to everyone in the frozen food case where you shop. Frozen White Castle hamburgers and cheeseburgers come ready to heat and eat. They take just seconds to prepare in your microwave. For a whole new world of snacking in the comfort of your home, get some soon. You'll be glad you did.
Oregon has been trying for almost 2 years now to find a replacement for fired medical examiner William Brady. Well, today, the second top candidate for the job turned it down. Dr. John Budd of Calgary, Alberta, now joins Dr. Fred Jordan of Oklahoma in saying no to the $80,000 a year post. Health Division Administrator Christine Gebbe says further recruitment will be discussed at a meeting sometime next week.
A bill passed the U.S. House today offering both an apology and compensation to Japanese Americans interned during the Second World War. That bill faces an uncertain future. President Reagan's advisors are recommending a veto. The measure authorizes payments of $20,000 to people of Japanese ancestry who were relocated or confined in the government's internment program. The bill was the only legislation passed by the House on the 200th birthday of the U.S. Constitution.
The actions that occurred during the Second World War and the relocation and internment was a violation, I think, of basic constitutional rights. To have a bill like this pass on this date is particularly significant for that reason.
That bill also provides money for educational programs. The House rejected an attempt to delete the more than $1 billion set aside for compensation of those who were held.
Our system of justice is based upon damages, compensating people for loss of rights. And we're also talking about the loss of real and personal property for people on the West Coast. And that was an actual loss. There are psychological studies that show the impact during that time of those people also.
That bill is to come before the Senate next week.
Pope John Paul was greeted in California today by a man who is very well known in his own right. A man whose reputation for screen violence presented a marked contrast to the man spreading a message of love and compassion. Mark Phillips has this report.
Pope John Paul II dealt with at least 2 well-known American institutions in California today. Well shielded by security guards, he was introduced to Clint Eastwood, the actor, mayor of Carmel, in a receiving line at the Monterey airport. And at an outdoor mass attended largely by migrant farm workers, he took up their cause, citing the U.S. Constitution, whose anniversary he acknowledged today.
I appeal to landowners.
Write feedback, KATU, Office Box 2, Portland, Oregon, 97207.
From the KATU Television Center in Portland for Oregon and Southwest Washington, this is Channel 2 News at 6:30.
Good evening. I'm Paul Lindman. Melissa Mills is off tonight. A Canby man who is already being charged with stabbing to death a Portland prostitute is the prime suspect in the Molalla Forest murders. These pictures of Dayton Leroy Rogers were taken early last month after he was accused of killing a prostitute behind an Oak Grove restaurant. The Clackamas County Sheriff's Department is now disclosing that Rogers is a suspect in the murder of 7 women whose bodies were found near Molalla. Yamhill County Prosecutor John Collins describes him as one of the most dangerous criminals he has ever known.
I don't want to say something that might affect the pending case against him in Clackamas County, so you understand my being cautious there. But I think it's fair to say that I thought then and I think now that he's a very dangerous person.
While Dayton Leroy Rogers is a prime suspect, he's not the only suspect, and there have been no charges filed. Rogers declined to talk with us. Dayton Rogers has a history of criminal charges in 3 Oregon counties. In some of those cases, he was found not guilty by reason of mental defect. That means the court found that Rogers committed the crimes, but did not have the mental responsibility for them. That was in 1976. Wording of the insanity plea has changed since then to guilty, except for mental disease or defect. Portland attorney Wendell Birkeland explains.
That they weren't saying before.
Well, I think they're saying now what in fact was always the truth. The person did the act. If he didn't do the act, he wouldn't be raising the insanity defense. And so now they've really conformed the language to reality in the sense that the person committed the act, therefore is guilty of the act,
but he's insane, and therefore should be dealt with differently by the criminal justice system.
Brooklyn says less than 10% of people in Oregon charged with serious crimes use the insanity defense, mainly because it's hard to prove and juries don't usually buy it. State parks on the coast have been added to the list of strike targets by the Oregon Public Employees Union. But this second day of a so-called tactical strike has drawn a strong warning from Oregon's governor. More from Mark Hass.
State parks on the coast became the newest targets of the union's rolling strike today, a sign that union leaders believe it will last through the weekend and not go unnoticed by campers and tourists. Other than that, state workers struck the same agencies as yesterday, including Damish and state mental hospitals, as well as dozens of small selected state offices around Oregon. Picket signs even went up in downtown Portland at a celebration of the Constitution.
We want a contract. They got a contract 200 years ago. We want one now.
But like yesterday, the state says more than 80% of the union workers reported for work. The union strategy is that while workers are here today, they may be gone tomorrow without notice. It is a tactic that Neil Goldschmidt today called chaos, and one that he won't tolerate for long.
The theory of the strike, I presume, is they can strike for 48 hours or a week or something in one place, then send their workers back to work and go someplace else. I think implicit in this is that they can go someplace else and come back to point A again and ask their people to go out again. At some point, we will say to people, when you go out, don't come back.
There is debate over whether the state can legally do that, locking out employees, but the union believes just by talking about it, the strike is getting under the governor's skin.
That would be a rash act on his part. It would, to me, the suggestion, if he's made it, is a suggestion that he's more impacted by the strike than we could possibly have hoped for.
The union also maintains the strike is causing more confusion to the public than state managers are letting on. The union reports some welfare programs have been disrupted to the point of chaos, but the state denies any major problems.
Because we have consolidated some of the staffs and we have management staffs being diverted to those offices, we're still able to handle the clients who are coming in.
Despite the public war of words, the two sides meet in private once again tomorrow at the bargaining table. But there will be a big difference in these negotiations from those that broke off on Tuesday. These talks will be conducted against the backdrop of an ongoing strike. In Salem, Mark Hass, Channel 2 News.
Well, the public employee strike could definitely have an effect on college campuses around the state if it's not settled soon. Right now, the state's 3 major colleges are not in session, but come next week, when it's time to register for classes, things could be chaotic, especially if the clerks who handle registration are on strike. The OPEU won't say whether the strike will be expanded to the state's colleges, but just in case it is, school officials are taking precautionary steps to make sure everything goes smoothly.
We'll have to go to contingency plans, which first call for getting assistance from other non-bargaining unit personnel, management service, and so on, from other offices on campus.
Strike or not, school administrators say it will be business as usual come next week. Classified workers at the Oregon Health Sciences University have avoided going on strike. Members of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees have ratified a new contract agreement. The union represents 2,200 workers at the Health Sciences University. A Hillsborough School Board member has resigned following this week's levy defeat. Martin Butler submitted his resignation yesterday. Tuesday's levy failure put the school into the state's new safety net. It also means the elimination of almost all bus transportation, athletics, and after-school activities. Butler's resignation also comes as a recall effort is underway against several school board members. Well, on this 200th birthday of our Constitution, the House today passed legislation apologizing to thousands of Japanese Americans interned during World War II. But while the measure offers survivors compensation, those here in the Northwest shouldn't get their hopes up yet. Tim Hilliard explains from Channel 2's Washington, D.C. Bureau.
45 years ago, over 20,000 Northwest residents were rounded up. They were among 120,000 Japanese Americans taken by bus and train to relocation camps. They had homes, businesses, belongings, all either left or sold, quickly, cheaply. Back then, the government explained it all in a word: security.
Japanese fishermen had every opportunity to watch the movement of our ships. Japanese farmers were living close to vital aircraft plants.
There was, in fact, little danger of sabotage, and the government knew it. In '42, Norman Mineta was a 10-year-old Cub Scout.
We lost our homes.
We lost our businesses. We lost our farms. But worst of all, we lost our most basic human rights.
Today's apology to Americans like Mineta was never in doubt. The debate centered on plans to pay $20,000 to each camp survivor.
The committee is asking us to purge ourselves of somebody else's guilt with another generation's money.
It's estimated 10,000 who lived in the camps still live in the Northwest. Perhaps that's why all but 2 Northwest congressmen supported the payments. Seattle's Mike Lowry proposed them.
Our system of law has in it compensation for when you were wronged, and specifically compensation for when you were wronged by the government. So just to say, hey, here's an apology, that is not enough.
The payments were approved by House members today. Senate approval is expected next week. But problems loom. The president is threatening to veto. Plus, today's vote only authorized the payments. The actual money, some $1.2 billion, must still be set aside. That will take more votes and perhaps more courage. In Washington, D.C., Tim Hillard, Channel 2 News.
Today is the 200th birthday of the U.S. Constitution, and among the many celebrations across the nation was one right here in downtown Portland. Several hundred people showed up to enjoy the party at Pioneer Courthouse Square, including some local dignitaries who turned out to talk about the last 200 years and about the future.
While we blacks and we women were not included in 1787, we are very much included in 1987. Because the constitutional process is alive, is well, and continues to work. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner.
Back criticism over the way the city of Portland spends its money on cars, and new jobs promised for the Hillsborough area.
The main event.
At Thomas & Ford. Right now, you'll find knockout prices on Ford Rangers and Bronco 2s from Oregon's #1 volume Ford dealer. Like low 1.9% financing or up to $1,000 cash back on a new Ford truck. That's 1.9% financing or up to $1,000 cash back. And pay only $19 down.
You'll be a winner too. Isn't that right, Daddy?
That's right, Christopher. If you don't come see me today, I can't save you any money.
We want fish sticks that come out of a microwave crunchy, not soggy.
That's why we created new Gorton's microwave crunchy fish sticks and fillets.
But are they crunchy?
They're mild white fish with no preservatives.
But are they crunchy?
Packed in Gorton's advanced microwave containers.
But are they?
So they come out crunchy.
That's what we've been waiting for.
Trust Gorton's for fish the way you want it. New Gorton's microwave crunchy and regular crunchy. The same great fish cooked however you want.
Don't miss the low prices on products for your home and garden in this 40-page month-long sale from your Fred Meyer Home Improvement and Garden Center.
Improve your home's insulation with Keller Combination Storm and Screen Doors. The aluminum finish door is just $35.95. And paint your home for less with Glidden's best exterior paint, Spread House. Right now, Duraflat is $9.77, Satin is $10.97, and Gloss is $11.97.
During the month-long sale at all Fred Meyer Home Improvement and Garden Centers.
A highly critical audit has just been released on the way that Portland manages its motor pool. It says the city can save millions of dollars by eliminating as many as 400 unnecessary cars, contracting out for tune-ups and repairs, and straightening out some bad bookkeeping practices.
The fleet fund, as it was originally set up, has been failed to be managed. It was intended to be a financially solvent fund, and it never has been.
Commissioner in charge Bob Koch will suggest improvements in the next few months. Among the most controversial is an idea to cut by half the 100 workers who have take-home privileges on city cars. Koch proposes paying them a flat fee for using their own cars. More jobs are in store for the Hillsborough area as Fujitsu America has announced plans to build another plant. The computer manufacturer says it will begin construction this month of a $30 million facility. It will be built next to its Hillsborough plant and is expected to create 500 new jobs. The plant is part of the company's long-term expansion plan, which will eventually employ more than 3,000 people. The new plant will manufacture computer tape drives, printed circuit boards, and other electronic products. Wall Street continued its downward trend today. The Dow Jones dropped another 2 points, closing at 25.27. The Dow has now fallen close to 81 points for the week. And some of the finest products that come out of Oregon are on their way to the Far East tonight. Sandy Poole has the story in today's Business Report.
There are hopes for a prosperous Oregon future tied up in these shipping crates. They are examples of foods, wood products, and industries. And they're bound for Japan and Taiwan for the Oregon Trade Festival 87 being held in the two countries next month. The state has peddled its wares many times at trade shows in Pacific Rim countries, but this time Governor Neil Goldschmidt is going along to sell Oregon itself as a place to do business. State Agriculture Director Bob Buchanan believes this joint effort could pay off big.
We're also there making the statement that Oregon is very interested in you as a trading partner, as a business associate. We've been doing that for decades. That just because the trade debate that's going on in Washington, D.C. now is going on, that we're paying little attention to that, and it's business as usual, and if not, bigger and better.
In addition to some of Oregon's finest fresh and processed foods, some unusual items are being included, like handcrafted buggies and sleighs from Southern Oregon, and even the frames for putting greens. Signs for the exhibits are also being shipped from here. Normally, transporting all this merchandise would cost the state more than $10,000, but two shipping lines are picking up the tab, hoping to cash in on the new business when Japan and Taiwan start buying. The two shipments are due to arrive in Asia the first week in October, with eager Oregon salesmen right on their heels. At the Port of Portland's Terminal 6, Sandy Poole, Channel 2 News.
Today's business has been brought to you by Health Maintenance of Oregon.
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Oh, I'm fine.
He's fine. I'm fine.
Well, I'm fine.
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Fine. Yeah, I'm really fine.
I'm fine.
Health Maintenance of Oregon. We'd like everyone to feel fine.
So how are you?
At Montgomery Ward's every Maytag sale, the discounts you've been dreaming of are even bigger on this dependable Maytag washer. Save $80. You'll be wide-eyed at the $90 savings on this heavy-duty Maytag dryer. Maytag stacked washer and dryer is $100 off. The $130 savings on this Maytag dishwasher will make you sit up and take notice. With the toolbox will stay out of his.
My dreams never come true.
So get up and go to the every Maytag sale at Montgomery Ward now.
Now this is something new. McCall's Service Protection Plan for people like me who depend on oil heat. This plan covers things other oil companies won't touch. McCall tunes up your entire heating system. They're on call 24 hours a day with no cost for parts or labor and no overtime charges. Now that's a plan. Why do you need it? Just in case. Hello, McCall?
Compare the alternatives. There's no other plan like it. Call McCall. We've got you covered.
Success has come to stay. We did it our way. Reaching for the stars, it's not so very far. Now's the time for me. No time to wait and see. This is where the change
This is a busy time of year if you're a sportscaster, but Steve Arena has it covered, I believe.
NFL strike. You know, they can't even get to the negotiating table, let alone trying to hammer out a bargain. That's the main thing right now they're trying to settle. 5 days and counting before the NFL strike deadline. Reports indicate both negotiators plan a private meeting tomorrow in hopes of getting the talks on track for a possible settlement. Today, the players rejected the owner's suggestion of mediation, saying it would only be a smokescreen to cover what they say is management's refusal to bargain on key issues. Once again, reports are in the wind that Joe Busis may move the Portland Beavers. Joe is back in town to meet with an ER Commission member tomorrow about the possibility of building street-level offices. If his proposal is turned down, Joe says he may hit the road and take his team with him.
Definitely I would. I would, because that has been a hang-up with me. I think that's why we're not operating correctly. The people are depressed down there. My guys just, sit there and they don't, you can't see the light of day. And it's important that we're out in the street level, have people come and see us. I mean, even a news media could drop in, but they see us, we're at the office, they'll drop in to see us, or anybody, you know. But they don't want to take the time to go downstairs and worry about, you know, if we're there or not.
Busa says he's even willing to pay the bill for the new offices if the ER Commission can approve a location. In San Francisco today, the Giants beat the Astros 4-0. Rick Russell, a 2-hit shutout. To win a pennant, you need pitching, and that's what you saw from the contenders last night. Jack Morris spun a 3-hitter at Boston, raising his record to 18-8, keeping his team tied for first. Toronto also kept pace thanks to the shutout pitching of Jimmy Key. He tied a club record with his 17th win against just 6 losses. 7-0 over Baltimore. The Blue Jays and Tigers remain tied. In the National League, Dwight Gooden was at his best. 3-hitting Montreal, striking out 11. The Mets remain a game and a half behind St. Louis in the East. In college football, Oregon takes a 1-0 record into Buckeye country Saturday, taking on 4th-ranked Ohio State. Rich Brooks says it will indeed be a test.
Well, you know, it's a real measure of where we are, obviously. After the game, we'll be able to tell whether our defense is really as good as it looked in the first game, whether our offense can protect the passer as well as they did in the first game. So there's a lot of things that we'll be able to judge much more clearly after the Ohio State game, because I don't think anybody you know, is going to say Ohio State's not a good football team. They're obviously a great football team.
Tommy Nakajima shot a 10-under-62 today for the first-round lead at the Greater Milwaukee Open.
I'll tell you, when he says that's a measure against Ohio State, Brooks, that's a measure. Yeah. And a measure of today's weather is next.
It's pretty hard to measure up against this weather. It comes about November 15th, and we look back on how nice the end of summer was. But it's just going to be more nice. Stick with us. Weather's next.
It's happening right now. The Toyota Tag Sale. That means your Toyota dealer is making the year's best deals.
You know what? You got a deal.
We're clearing out our entire 1987 inventory to make way for the 88s. So you'll find sale tags on every car, every truck, every Toyota in stock.
I'll take it.
The time to buy America's #1 selling import is now. So get down to the Toyota Tag Sale today, and the right deal will be yours right now.
This is Les Schwab. If you want to save money on tires, you've come to the right sale.
The Les Schwab Fall Tire Sale. The best time of the year to buy tires. Tires for work, tires for play. High performance to all seasons. Les Schwab's Fall Tire Sale is the one you've been waiting for. Sale prices on custom wheels, gas shocks, and batteries, too. Backed in writing with the Les Schwab warranty. The warranty you don't pay extra for.
Anyone who needs tires should shop this sale.
Before you talk yourself out of owning a new home, listen to what Don Morissette Builders can do for you.
I'm now a
manufactured home.
Today's manufactured home.
You bought a house.
Built for living, built for life.
I'm Kim Singer.
And I'm Gary Hill. In the news tonight, Clackamas County investigators confirm a Canby man is a suspect in the murders of 7 women near Molalla.
The Bonneville Power Administration comes under fire for a multi-million-dollar furniture purchase.
President Reagan leads the festivities in Philadelphia, celebrating the bicentennial of the U.S. Constitution.
And Oktoberfest celebrations get underway in the Portland area. The 10 o'clock news is next.
Good evening, everyone. The focal suspect. That's how Clackamas County investigators now describe a Canby man and his relationship to 7 bodies found near Molalla. 33-year-old Dayton Rogers is already in jail, accused of felony murder in an unrelated case. But people, that is, who knew him are surprised at the news that he's now the main suspect in the Molalla case. Lars Larson has our story.
Really nice guy, real clean cut. Always came and worked real hard, long hours. He was there on a Sunday evening. That was the night that we were over there. And I'm shocked, totally shocked to hear, you know, what he's been accused of.
Substitute teacher Ann Lewis lived just down the road from the engine shop run by Dayton L. Rogers. Rogers is considered the main suspect in the Molalla Forest murder case. 7 bodies were found in the forest south of Dickey Prairie about 2 weeks ago. 2 have been identified. The first, 23-year-old Lisa Marie Mock from southeast Portland. The second victim was identified this week as Maureen Hodges of southwest Portland. Rogers was taken into custody in early August and charged with felony murder in the August 7th stabbing death of Jennifer Lisa Smith. A spokesman for the Clackamas County Sheriff would only say Rogers is the focal suspect and that there are other suspects. Dayton Rogers lived in this Canby home with his wife and his in-laws until his arrest last month. A neighbor who knew him says people had mixed opinions.
Some people around here were thinking he's a real bad guy, you know, real rapist and all that kind of stuff. He didn't really seem like that kind of guy to me, though. Really didn't.
Rogers ran this small engine shop, fixing lawnmowers and chainsaws in the town of Woodburn. Ann Lewis says she had reason to think Rogers was a nice person.
Well, we took our boat over one evening. We'd had trouble with it. It was about 10 o'clock at night, and he offered to work on it right that night, and we were just shocked. He was a real articulate man, and I'm really surprised when I read in the paper that they said he was found innocent by mental defect, because he was real articulate.
A copyright story in the Portland Oregonian says Rogers has a history of violent sex crimes, but has been found not guilty in several cases based on a mental defect defense. Rogers is in custody at the Clackamas County Jail tonight. His bail hearing is set for October 16th. In Oregon City, Lars Larson, the 10 o'clock news.
Members of the Oregon Public Employees Union on strike against the state continued their strategic walkout today, striking at virtually the same spots they targeted yesterday, which was the first day of the walkout. Today, though, the union got a strong warning from the governor. He told strikers if they continue to go back and forth from work to the picket lines, at some point they won't be allowed back on the job. Trish Nyworth has more.
There are some here, some there. One picketer at a Woodburn area way station signaling trucks not to stop.
Yes, they go in spurts. Mostly the union trucks are not stopping. Yesterday, probably 150, 200 did run the scales.
At OSCI, their percentage was better. This was the first truck this morning to try and cross the line.
Please extend some dignity to us and turn around. At least have your boss contact out here and find out, please.
They don't need any cookies today anyway. We don't need them all day.
The number of workers out remained high at select locations. About 2,000 participated again in a strategy union officials call striking smarter.
Strategy does is enable us to last for a very long strike, where our individual members individually are not hurt economically, but the employer is in a state of chaos.
The disruption hasn't come so much in customer inconvenience as it has in management confusion. And the governor says he won't keep trying to second-guess the union indefinitely.
At some point, we will say to people, when you go out, don't come back until this is settled.
State officials haven't decided yet if they'll have a lockout policy or what kind it would be. In the meantime, they have been moving management staff to make up for the areas hardest hit, like the state hospital and Damish. State officials have not only moved in central management people to help out, they've shuffled some employees from here at Fairview. If you recall, the state has just spent thousands of dollars to get this place recertified and fully staffed. Well, state officials confirm that they have moved 45 employees from here to mental health institutions being struck. They have checked with federal officials who say for the short term, this is no problem. A negotiating session is set for tomorrow. Neither side is optimistic, but there appeared even today some room for negotiation.
We're not going to come in and say we're going to give OPU twice as much.
Would you perhaps move the starting date to 3%?
That's possible.
That means for half of the first year of the contract, employees get nothing. They want to move it up to the beginning of the contract year? Certainly we'll look at that.
Would that be enough?
Depends where they are with everything else. No, by itself it would not.
Talk like that may mean that this public employees strike may well turn out to be not so long after all. In Salem, Trish Nyworth, the 10 o'clock news.
State Representative Ron Ekus of Eugene has been appointed to the Oregon Public Utility Commission. Governor Goldschmidt appointed him today to replace Commissioner Charles Davis, who's stepping down. Goldschmidt also appointed a new director for the State Department of Energy. Dave Yaden of Lake Oswego got the nod. Yaden is a longtime political ally of the governor. Most recently, he worked for NERCO Incorporated.
The Bonneville Power Administration is under fire tonight, but it's got nothing to do with electricity this time. The agency, which has asked for a big rate hike, is now being criticized for buying $6 million worth of office furniture and discarding old but perfectly usable furniture. Florence Jonick has details on that.
For years, critics have complained that the Bonneville Power Administration is wasteful with money. Now those critics have something new to hang their hats on. The Federal Power Marketing Agency has filled its mammoth new Portland headquarters with brand new office furniture and has given away a building full of old usable furniture. BPA is getting a $3 million credit on its federal debt for the old furniture, but the new cost $6 million. All this comes at a time when customers like public utility districts are facing sharp rate increases. Jack Kiley, the man in charge of the purchase, says it was more efficient to start over with new furniture in a new building.
I mean, you can always say, could we have gotten another year out of the old furniture? Yeah, or 2 or 3. I think it was a prudent decision.
Mick Schutt, spokesman for the Clark County Public Utility District, says the furniture purchase is typical of BPA waste.
We think it's just a tip of the iceberg in Bonneville's spending habits. We have been very disturbed with the way they've spent money on a lot of things for a long time, and I think this is just evidence that they really are not that careful with the ratepayers' money.
The new furniture includes 2,200 modular workstations, 43 executive offices, and 8 conference rooms. One employee complained today that the new chairs aren't as comfortable as the old ones. The old furniture is being distributed among a host of government agencies, including the Navy, the Washington State Ferry System, and the Army Corps of Engineers. In Portland, Florence Jonick, the 10 o'clock news.
The city of Portland's also being criticized tonight. It has too many cars. At least that's the conclusion of a just-released audit. The report says the city could significantly cut its fleet operation costs by reducing the number of cars it owns and maintains.
Is that Portland has too many cars. As our graph shows, more than 1/3 of the passenger vehicles are driven less than 6,000 miles a year.
The audit says a city auto replacement plan is more than $5 million short of where it should be. Now, City Commissioner Bob Koch, who heads the Fleet Bureau, says steps will be taken to reduce the fleet. The first step will be to eliminate half of the 100 so-called take-home cars used by city employees. Koch also wants to explore using private companies to maintain city cars. He says that the City Fleet Bureau charges about $100 for an oil change, for instance, something private companies do for about 20 bucks.
The Beaverton School District has pinpointed the cause of the fumes that forced the evacuation of 150 students from a modular classroom at Greenway School this week. The fumes, which made 3 people sick, were traced to a sealant that had been applied to the outside of the building on Saturday. The modular classroom at Greenway was built this summer. All 3 students affected have now recovered, the fumes have disappeared, and classes will resume in the building on Monday.
Oregon's long search for a medical examiner has been dealt a hard blow. Dr. John Budd, a Canadian chosen months ago to fill the long vacant position, today announced he won't take the job. Budd was to have replaced Dr. William Brady, who was fired by the state more than 2 years ago. Now, this is the second time Oregon's been turned down. Earlier this year, Dr. Fred Jordan of Oklahoma was offered that job and tentatively accepted, only to turn it down in the end. Clackamas County Sheriff Bill Brooks says the Medical Examiners Advisory Board plans to meet next week to consider other candidates for that job.
Man's best friend. Well, maybe second best friend.
Don't miss the low prices on products for your home and garden in this 40-page month-long sale from your Fred Meyer Home Improvement and Garden Center. Save on heating bills this winter with easy-to-install 3M outdoor window insulator kits for $347. Save on the complete line of interior and exterior Magicolor paint, like Magicolor Satin Plus for $8.99 a gallon. After rebate, just $6.99. And enter to win a trip to Hong Kong, Paris, Tokyo, or London. During the month-long sale at all Fred Meyer Home Improvement and Garden Centers.
The quality of life is so very important, and now thanks to oral implants, denture wearers who couldn't eat salads or balanced diets are eating normally again. The Meridian Dental Clinic has an enviable record of over 500 implants and 99.8% success, a standard for others to follow. This success means you too may be able to have the eating comfort and quality of life you deserve. Oral implants at Meridian Dental Clinic, because the quality of life is so important.
Fred McNally Shasta's having a gigantic closeout sale. All 87 Shastas are drastically reduced. Motorhomes, trailers, fifth wheels, everything goes. The 88s are pushing Fred to the limit. Don't miss this once-a-year opportunity for giant savings. Fred McNally Shasta is ready to put you on the road in relaxed style. But you'd better hurry. Fred's gigantic 87 closeout sale ends soon.
I'm Fred McNally, inviting you to Fred's Travelorama or Fred McNally Shasta, home of quality, low prices, and great service.
Tonight, the nation's capital is buzzing with word that the United States and the Soviet Union will announce a nuclear arms agreement in principle sometime tomorrow. This would be a major step in the arms control negotiations. Tonight, Secretary of State George Shultz and his Soviet counterpart went far beyond their own negotiation deadline and met with President Reagan. Frank Sesno has the details.
Secretary of State Shultz and Soviet Foreign Minister Edward Shevardnadze unexpectedly extended their intense negotiations in search of an arms deal. And CNN has learned the two men will announce tomorrow that they've reached agreement on a medium-range nuclear missile treaty. Though it's unclear if all the final details have been settled, such an announcement would presumably clear the way for a summit between President Reagan and Soviet leader Gorbachev later this year, probably late November, when the treaty could be signed. It would eliminate all U.S. and Soviet medium-range missiles in Europe. As a result of these meetings, the two sides have already announced new talks aimed at limiting and ultimately ending nuclear testing.
The U.S. and Soviet sides have agreed to begin before December 1, 1987, full-scale, stage-by-stage negotiations, which will be conducted in a single forum.
This process, among other things, would pursue as the first priority the goal of the reduction of nuclear weapons and ultimately their elimination.
The talks with Shevardnadze this week have covered a wide range of issues, not just arms control, but human rights and bilateral concerns. Details are being closely guarded, but officials are conveying the clear impression that broad progress has been made. Frank Sesno, CNN, the White House.
An American soldier was wounded in East Germany today when his vehicle was fired upon by a Soviet soldier. The Pentagon reports the soldier was riding with a liaison team at the time. A group of Soviet soldiers had encountered the vehicle, and at least one Soviet fired at it 7 times, shattering glass and injuring that soldier. The unidentified soldier was treated for an arm wound at a Berlin hospital, later released. The U.S. has called the attack life-threatening and inexcusable. U.S. law enforcement officials have made their first arrest ever of a suspected international terrorist wanted under U.S. laws. Today, Attorney General Ed Meese announced that FBI agents lured a suspected Lebanese hijacker onto a small boat in the Mediterranean and brought him to the U.S. to stand trial. Meese said Fawaz Yuniz, a Shiite Muslim, was arraigned in Washington today on charges of hijacking and bombing a Jordanian airliner in Beirut 2 years ago.
This operation illustrates the intention and the ability of the United States to invoke the rule of law in fighting terrorist lawlessness. It is the first such operation, but it will most certainly not be the last.
The Justice Department is hoping that international terrorists will get the message that the U.S., in this case at least, means business.
Bells rang out across the United States today, commemorating the Constitution's 200th birthday. The celebration was especially meaningful in Philadelphia. That's where the Constitution was born. Richard Roth reports.
Bicentennial bells, replicas of the original Liberty Bell, rang out at Independence Hall, 4 p.m., September 17th, the exact moment 200 years ago that the U.S. Constitution was signed. It was cold and cloudy the day of the signing. Times may have changed, but 200 years later, the weather has not. Rain kept many people away. These bicentennial celebrants didn't mind the drizzle.
Well, I can hold the umbrella all day. There's a lot more good stuff to come. I'm having a great time.
I'm optimistic.
About what?
The rain will go away.
The festivities were organized by the We the People 200 group. Even though everyone soon became We the 250,000 wet people, the party was on.
It's great. I'm a part of history. I could tell my children and my grandchildren.
The The dreary weather offered yet another test of the American spirit, according to actress and float rider Colleen Dewhurst. Those who came to observe the bicentennial cherish in their own way the meaning of the Constitution.
We have so many freedoms that no other country has. Freedom of speech, that's why we're here. That's why we're allowed to have this parade, because of the Constitution.
The Constitutional Convention introduced some delegates from different parts of the country to one another, and so did the bicentennial celebration.
I think it's great. All these people, especially out-of-towners. I'm from Philadelphia, but these people are very friendly. I met them for the first time. Great.
For those who weathered the parade, it was on to a large food fair and a test of a different kind of Constitution.
I think it's terrific to have corn on the anniversary, if you're eating it.
With a touch of corn and larger doses of historical pomp, the city of brotherly love celebrated a special day for a special document. Richard Roth, CNN, Philadelphia.
Church bells rang 200 times in Portland today, also part of the local ceremonies paying tribute to the Constitution. It was a vibrant color guard that bore the stars and stripes across Pioneer Courthouse Square to open today's ceremonies. And of course, what would a party be without cake? And there was one big enough to feed 500 today. Also party favors, 1,000 copies of the Constitution passed out to those who attended. On the outer fringe of today's ceremony, though, state employees set up an informal picket line pushing their case for higher wages. However, there were no incidents to mar today's constitutional birthday celebration.
In Washington, meanwhile, a House vote today approved legislation to compensate Japanese Americans who were forced into internment camps during World War II. Representative Denny Smith was the only member of the Oregon delegation to vote against that bill. It passed anyway, 243 to 141.